4D evil skull with an opening mouth acrylic nailer tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi everyone, in today's video it's going to be the first Halloween tutorial of the season. Now if you're thinking about what other Halloween videos am I going to do, what to expect, what's upcoming, I did upload a preview yesterday that's got a very small sampling of what is to come in my Halloween tutorial sense, because I have so many planned for you. I actually have more ideas than I have days in the month to upload on. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to start cutting some out and maybe saving some for next year. So I'm really excited. I love Halloween, I love the whole thing. I love skeletons and skeleton rats. So in this one, it's actually going to be an evil skull that has a place on his jaw where it doesn't open like on a hinge like this, but it just comes all the way down and just opens up, which is so cool. I did something very similar a year ago that was an evil pumpkin, same kind of concept, the jaw just dropped down, and I loved that one so much I wanted to kind of do a same but different version of it this year, which is going to be the first tutorial, which is this evil skull. I hope you guys like it, and please click subscribe to see all my future Halloween videos.
So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to glue a magnet to the nail, and I know that I glued that one on and then I missed recording it. So you glue one on and then mark on the top of, so set two that are stacked, mark on the top of the second one. So then you're going to take the second one off the first one and you're going to set it in some glue right below it. So you want them to be right next to each other. This is going to be the distance that your mouth is going to open. So then glue those right in a straight line down the center of the nail. The first one should be maybe a little bit less than halfway up the nail. Make sure it's beyond where your nail bed is though. And then next to the magnets, you're going to want to create these two holes that are the same length. So they're long, skinny holes that span the length of the distance of the magnets. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry, I'm off camera a little bit. There we go. So just take an e-file and just carve out these holes. These are going to be the tracks for the little slider for your jaw. So you're going to want to just kind of work on that, make that a nice little, it's kind of a weird looking thing at the moment, but you need to make sure you have that structure made so that it'll all work out later on. So now you're going to be sculpting the top portion of your skull, and this is a very just beginning stage of this. So I've just got a little bit that's going to be for the upper row of teeth, and then I'm going to start working on, there's the cheekbones coming down, and then I'll finish off the top of the skull at the top of the nail. And this is very thin. This is not super perfect. This is just a guideline, basically. This is just the beginning of it. It is necessary to do this, though, to make sure that everything is going to fit in the end, just to have a base idea of where everything is going to be. So just make sure that you do this part, because then after you have this done, after you've got all of that white of that upper portion of the skull, just how you want it, then you're going to want to fill in the rest of the nail with black. So that's going to be filling in over the magnets, around the holes, up over the sides of the skull, all of the rest of the area. And when you're doing this and you're covering up your magnets, make sure that you cover them up so that the acrylic is at least as tall as the magnets, because you're going to want to file it smooth. You don't want there to be a weird like divot around the magnets. You want them to just be nice and smooth, and you're going to want the magnets to be, this acrylic to be exactly the same thickness as the magnets. But at this point, just cover them up because you can always file it away. So just make sure that your magnets are completely covered, and also make sure that you are going into all the little gaps around that white part of the skull. If you do go over some of the white part, you will be able to recover it or re-show it once you start filing it. So just make sure that you're basically fill in every possible little gap with the black acrylic. So then I'm going to be using a fairly fine bit, and I'm going to be revealing all of that white acrylic as well as the magnets. So once you see the magnets come through, they should just show up as nice little silver circles. Then you know that that's as thick as you want that part to be, and just continue making sure everything is really smooth. To make sure the slider works properly, you want this to be nice and smooth. So then I'm going to tightly wrap the nail with some plastic wrap. I'm using saran wrap, just very tightly as you can, as smoothly as you can. Then you're going to start sculpting out your the little slider piece. So this is going to be the lower part of the jaw. And make sure that you place a magnet on top of the upper magnet on top of the saran wrap. So it goes nail, saran wrap, magnet, acrylic. I hope that makes sense. But you can see there's a little bit of that magnet that's sticking up there. And you want to make sure that you're putting the magnet on top of the magnet that is higher up on the nail, that's closer to the upper jaw. That way when you pull it down, the magnet will click on to the second magnet that's close to the tip of the nail, and that it will have that little space to slide and to stay in place. Now, if you don't want to mess with the magnets, you can just skip that part, but then the slider might be a little bit loose and it might just kind of not be controllable and will go wherever it wants. Where if you have magnets in there that are going to hold it in place, you're going to have those two set positions for it to be in. But if you don't want set positions, just skip the magnets entirely and make those two little slider bars just like the magnets were there, but you do need to still have those holes in there. So because there's those two really thin pieces of jawbone, I didn't want them to be that delicate. I figured that was a little precarious. I filled in the gaps between the teeth and those side pieces of jaw with some black acrylic. You can't see it, you don't even really know that it's there, but that's going to add a lot of strength because there isn't going to be those really thin little skinny pieces. And then I'm going to be adding some more acrylic to the jaw, both to all of that white part of the lower part of the jaw. That's going to be making it so that the white acrylic is thicker than the black acrylic, that little space filler, so that it doesn't look quite so strange, but it's going to definitely add some strength, and you're not really, like I said, you're not going to see it. So just make sure that you have the white acrylic be thicker than the black, just like that. And then after you have that and it's dry and it's all set and it's not going to move on you, you can take it off the nail, peel it off the saran wrap, and then set it on there, and then you can hold it into the two places that it'll sit, because you can, with the magnet, you can just hold it in there. So then I'm going to be doing the 3D work on the upper portion of the skull. So you're going to want to start, I just add a little bit of black for inside the eye sockets and then inside the nasal cavity. But when you were sculpting the lower jaw, you want to make sure that you don't cover up any of that white acrylic that was on the upper portion of the skull. So now when you're doing this with adding more acrylic to the white, don't go past wherever the white acrylic is. And that's really important, because if you have the acrylic that extends too far, you're going to end up with things not lining up right. So if you have that, you can make sure that the lower jaw lines up with that little thin bit of white. And then you can, when you're adding more white, you can make sure that because it's not going to overlap or be a collision of acrylic if you just make sure that you're staying within those lines. I know usually I don't recommend coloring within the lines, but this time try to stay within the lines, but they're your own made lines, so it's not so bad. But I hope that makes sense, but that's why you needed that piece in there, because that's going to help make sure that everything is going to fit together properly at the end. I mean, you could always wing it and hope for the best, but I generally avoid recommending that. So I'm going to be adding, like I said, more acrylic to the white portion of the skull. I'm going to be creating little indents so he looks like he has a really nice, strong, creepy looking growly brow bone, and adding some more acrylic to his cheekbones, and just keep doing little beads and kind of building it up here and there. But do make sure that you are adding a reasonable amount of thickness, since that little slider piece, the little lower jaw, is going to have quite a bit of thickness, just to make sure it was strong enough to hold up and be moved and adjusted like that. You also want to make sure that this comes up to that same height. So you definitely, right around the teeth area, you want to make sure that it's thick enough that it's not going to look like it's so separate. You want to make sure that this all looks like it's part of the same skull and it's all the same thickness. So I'm adding that little bit there, and as you're doing this, try to avoid getting acrylic over your black eye sockets and over the nasal cavity, because you want to make sure that those still have that depth in them and they look like they're going in. So I'm taking and I switch to my smaller little 3D sculpting brush, and I'm going to be adding some more details to them. I only sculpted with black and white acrylic at this point. If you did want to do some different gradations and different depths of color, you could also use some gray acrylic. I did all of my other details and all the finer details with paint later on, but you can always switch things up and add little bits of gray acrylic if you wanted to as well. I'm also going to be doing, so I did some thicker bits of acrylic under the eyes, almost like bags, like he's tired, like he's got bags under his eyes, and then a little bit around his nose, add a little bit more around his eyes and his eye sockets like that. And just keep adding those small little details and keep going and adding more acrylic until you're happy with it. I definitely liked him having those kind of winged looking eye sockets in the brow bone, so I made sure I added a little bit more acrylic there. And if you Google evil skull, you will find so many images to base something like this off of, so you don't even have to use the same style as mine. I mean, there's so many options that you can go with, and it's actually kind of fun to look at them. And you don't have to match one specifically. You can look at features from different ones and see what you like and see what works for you. So then I'm just be adding a little bit more acrylic to where his teeth are going to be, just to make sure that that looks like it's definitely got the, skulls have very definite features on them. Paint over the magnets so that they don't show up as being silver, and then add a layer of gel sealer. The reason you wanted them to be exposed is because you want them to be as strong as possible, so if they've got any acrylic covering them, they're going to get significantly weaker, but you also don't want them to show, so just paint over them with black, and then that works out fine. So then on the other side, on the underside of the nail, kind of touch up the holes and then create little wells on the ends of the holes. So don't go all the way through the acrylic that's on the top of it, but just kind of create a little bit of an indent. And then set your little jaw piece on there, mark, so it's attached to the top magnet, mark on the jaw piece through the holes where you want your beads to be with a Sharpie, and then just glue 2 little seed beads, the little tiny jewelry making beads. So just pick those up, they're glass, and you're going to want to glue them onto those little marks that you made with the Sharpie, because then you know that they're going to fit and they're going to be the right distance apart, and they're going to fit into your little wells, or into your little holes that you made. Secure the beads to that lower jaw with some clear acrylic, just to make sure. Don't plug the hole though, but just make sure that it's going to really be attached, and don't add too much acrylic where they're not going to fit through the holes either. So you just got to add just a little bit, but it is going to add a lot of strength. Cut 2 little pieces of very fine jewelry wire. Have the little jaw going through the nail with the beads going through it. String the little piece of wire so it goes through the beads, but is going to be on top of, or on the underside of the nail. So it kind of goes through the beads, but then it's going to sit in those little wells that we made with the E-file. And hopefully they're not too long. If they're too long, you're going to have to trim them a little bit more. But then fill in the wells that have the wire with clear acrylic. So this is going to be holding those wires in place, which the wire is through the beads, which is holding on the upper jaw. So this thing pretty much isn't going anywhere. So once you have all this stuff securely attached, it's pretty sturdy. It's pretty durable. Now I wouldn't do anything crazy while I was wearing this, but I mean, considering it's actually pretty strong and pretty hardy. So then I'm going to be taking, and I'm having diluted white paint, or no, it's diluted black paint, and I'm going to start doing just kind of defining some of the features on my skull, including his little teeth, and just going around the eyes and adding all these little fine features. And this is the same thing. You can definitely look at different styles of skulls, but since this isn't a realistic skull, this is a stylized skull, you can really have fun with it and kind of do things and change things up and just enjoy it. But then I'm going to take some white paint and I'm going to be doing some highlights on it. I know that I'm kind of off camera and I apologize, but you're going to want to highlight everything that's a higher, that you made thicker, that you want to pop out a little bit more. And also make sure that you highlight the teeth. You want those to definitely show up. So just little lines for the teeth, and then little lines above and below the teeth where the roots of the tooth, where the roots are. And then go around and add a teeny tiny little outline around the teeth just to make sure they really pop up or pop out. The teeth is definitely one of the factors that makes an evil skull looking evil. So you want to make sure that they're nice and defined, and they kind of come to a little bit of a point at the top, some of them. And so just kind of, yeah, just make sure that those teeth really show up. And the other factor that's going to make your evil skull look evil is the shape of the eye sockets. So you don't want them to have that classic almost rectangular eye socket shape or rounded rectangular. You want them to come more to like a point and look squinty, and that's going to give you some of that evil intention. And then after you have all that done, you're going to want to apply a layer of matte top coat over the top of your skull. And I had the mouth open at this point just so that I wasn't going to accidentally top coat my jaw shut. After that's dry though, or cured, you can definitely go ahead and start seeing how your skull works and opening and closing the jaw. Like I said, this thing is actually pretty durable, and you'll be able to feel that once you have it, because that little jaw is well attached to the nail. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to share any recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them, and check the description box for my pumpkin video from last year, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!